For today's class, we are going to be practicing getting seated in a chair and standing up from a chair and all of the different movements that go with that. And so incorporating the Soma practices with like everyday movements is kind of one of my favorite things to do because it's something that's useful. And so by breaking down these everyday movements, we start to relearn the patterns and the muscles that are needed to function with those patterns. So I think everyone here has taken at least one of my Soma classes, so that's great. Let's get started with a little bit of breath. You can just close your eyes and notice your natural inhale and exhale without changing anything. Maybe this is a good spot to have a recap of your day and let all of that stuff start to fade away as you start to focus on now and the next hour ahead of you. Using your breath as an anchor if the attention starts to go elsewhere. Start to take an inhale in through the nose. Open mouth, exhale. 2 more just like that. Take an inhale. And exhale. One more inhale. On this inhale, I want you to count how long it takes you to do that inhale. Exhale, let it out. Again, inhale, same count, same speed of the count. And as you exhale, I want you to match that same count. So if you inhale for 3, exhale for 3. Good. Take that inhale. Hold it at the top. So you're going to hold in the inhale for that same count. And then exhale that same count. And back to the inhale. Hold. Exhale. Now we're going to hold that exhale at the bottom. So now we're coming into that square breath. So it's going to be like you go up for that same count. Inhale. Hold it. Exhale. Hold it. So you can imagine yourself making a square with your breath. Go ahead and do 3 more breaths of the square breath. Returning to your natural breath whenever you're complete. And then let's set an intention for this practice. You can set whatever intention you would like, whether that's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And as a reminder, we're going to be practicing the sit to stand. So if that's something you want your intention to be part of, you can do that. It could be as simple as I will be mindful as I sit down. All right, so moving to your mat, we're going to lie on our backs on our mat. And as you start to do that, taking a little body scan all the way from the feet to the head. And just becoming aware of how the body is situated on the floor, how it feels from the day that you've had and the day that you wish it to be. And so as we are sitting down and standing up, our hips are going to move as well as the spine, just so that we can have a more controlled movement. And so the first movement that we're going to do is arch and flatten, of course, right? Back to arch and flatten always. But as you do this arch and flatten, I want you to try to do it like it's the first time you've ever done arch and flatten. So even if it's a practice that you incorporate somehow every time into your day, I want you to act like you've never done it before. And see if you can discover a part of your body and movement that you've never felt before. So start to bring the knees up towards the ceiling, your feet flat on the floor, and your hands can just rest by your side. And so maybe you start by noticing how wide your feet are from each other, how far away your feet are from your glutes. And this is the first step of discovering something new. Maybe that makes a big difference in how your arch and flatten goes for you today. And we always start with the arch usually. So let's turn it around and let's start with the flatten. So from here, you're going to start to tuck the tailbone, like you're tucking your tail between your legs, and you're going to feel your pelvis start to tilt backwards. So I'm going to stand up just so you guys can see me. But from here, like you're tucking your tail between your legs, and you feel your spine get a little bit longer against the mat. And the belly muscles contract. And as you release this, you notice any twitches, or maybe it's a super smooth movement. And ask yourself, can I get into a different place today? What am I releasing? And come into it again. Start to tuck the tailbone between the legs. Feel the pelvis, the right and the left hip start to tuck, roll back. And as you do that, you feel the belly muscles contract. And I want you to pause there. If you're feeling the glutes engage, then you're going too far into the movement. And I want you to back out of the tilt of the pelvis a little bit. And then slowly release it. As slow as possible. fully release, fully relax. And let's do it one more time. Tuck, contract the belly muscles, and feel the vertebrae one by one get a little bit closer to touching your mat along the back side of the body. And then ask yourself, is there any possible way that I can release from this a little bit slower? And then come back into another assessment of the body. If you did your assessment with the legs out long before, you can go back to that. And see if anything has shifted. And then bring the feet back to the mat. Notice the placement of the feet, how far or close together they are, and what's the range between your heels and the glutes. And you just have to find a comfortable position. There's no right or wrong answer. Whatever feels like that happy medium for you today. And then let's go in the opposite direction, coming into that arch. So as you come into the arch, you start to press the tailbone down towards the floor this time, like you're trying to make an imprint with the tailbone. You feel the right and left hip start to go up towards the knees, and you feel that rainbow through the arch of your low back. And then slowly start to melt the spine and the pelvis back to neutral. Let's come into it again. Start to press the tailbone down, tilt the pelvis. And as you do this, be curious if you can get into those muscles along the vertebrae a little bit deeper, having a littler contraction in those places that you might not have done before. Do you notice a new muscle engagement today? And then slowly start to release. Doing it a couple more times. Being curious about the movement. And then maybe you take an arch, neutral, flatten, neutral. And you start to teeter-totter the hips back and forth until you feel like you've found your neutral pelvis and your neutral spine. And then rest in that sweet spot for just a moment. And take in how it feels. So this is a really good exercise that you could do before bed if you are a back sleeper. And you can start to find that most comfortable position for you so you're not so out of whack as you fall asleep. Taking your time to finish up. Still lying on your back. You're going to bring your feet as wide as your mat or wider so that your feet are wider than your hips. And then you can even bring the heels away from the glutes so that you have a little extra space than what you did before. And from here, we're just going to start to move one leg at a time in and out and see how the leg bone plays a role in the hip and what that relationship is. So let's start with the left leg. You're going to keep the foot on the floor and you're just going to start to drop open this left knee towards the left side of you. And as you do that, you can feel this hip, this inner hip open up. You can feel the leg joint roll in the hip and then slowly bring it back in. Noticing the muscles that it takes to bring that leg back in. Back on out. Easy does it come back in. One more time towards the outside. And then back in. So as you bring that knee out, you can feel what happens on your low back on the left side. So try it one more time. Noticing the left back. And come back in. And let's go in with the leg. Bringing that left knee in towards the midline and back out. 2 more times. Bring it in. Feeling that slight stretch across the left hip. Good. Last one. And then you can take it out and in with that left leg. And be conscious of how your knee feels as you do this. If you're feeling any strain or pull on that knee, like the tendons or the ligaments across the knee, then make a smaller movement. Don't go as open with the leg. You're still going to get that rotation of the hip flexor, but it doesn't need to hurt at all, okay? Alright. Let's take it to the other leg. So, still lying down, I'm just gonna turn so you can see me here. Coming in with the right leg, or coming out, sorry, with the right leg. Feeling this rotation of the leg bone. And then bringing it back in. Bring it out nice and slow. Notice how that changes the orientation of the back. And back in. Last time. And then you can take that knee in, drop it in, and back out. 2 more times here. And then you can start to go back and forth nice and slow, out and in. Good. If you're still feeling good, let's take it a step further. If it's feeling a little bit painful or uncomfortable, then you can stick with the one leg at a time or just take a little pause. But with both legs this time, you're going to start to bring them to the same side. So this is windshield wipers. You're going to drop both knees to the right, bring them to center, and then both knees to the left. center. So you can imagine windshield wipers on your car going back and forth. And so obviously with the windshield wipers, each leg is going in its opposite direction of rotation. So you can do that way. Or we can start to challenge the brain in a different way and come into the flower. So as you're lying on your back, you can start to drop both knees out, letting the rotation of the legs go in the same direction, bring it in, and have the knees come together. Again, same rotation. But we do it with a conscious effort, not just flailing our knees out to side. We're really concentrating on that connection, that joint from the leg bone to the hip. So whatever one feels better, you can do the flower or the windshield wipers. But as you do this, both of them, you're going to feel that movement along the back side of the body as well as the hips. Do a couple more. And so as we move these legs, your nice, lovely legs, we get an understanding of that joint, that super large joint of their body, and how the legs are situated under our hips. So when we go from our sitting position to our standing and vice versa, we understand, like, in space where the legs are. And that's going to help us find some stability and balance to go from sit to stand. All right, let's start to make our way up to standing. However, that is the easiest for you. And shake it out. Take some free movement. And then maybe close your eyes or have a soft gaze here. And as you do this, you get a feel for the legs under your body, how they're situated. You get a sense for the hips. Are the hips stacked under the shoulders on top of the legs? Or do you feel like you're cockeyed in any sense? Maybe you need to take a couple arch and flattens standing to find your neutral pelvis. Or maybe you just take a couple twists with the hips so that you feel like your left and right hip are pretty even towards me and not that one is rotated closer towards me than the other. Good. And then take a look down at your feet. Do you feel like your feet are in a good position to support you? Meaning that they're pretty straightforward. Maybe there's a slight rotation outward or inward, but it's not too much. The feet are under the hips so that you're nice and supported. And that you don't have to have too much energy in the muscles. So like you don't have an over contraction of any part of the body to just stand upright. And then let's start to sway forward onto the toes, the ball of the foot, and then back towards the heels. So having that sway back and forth, maybe your eyes are still closed, or maybe you pick a point out in front of you to look at. But eventually, as you start to sway back and forth, you find that center point between the front and the back. And you let yourself rest there. And then let's go right to left. So you can either just go to the right and left foot, or you can go to the outer edge of the right and left foot. And again, you're going to find that center point on the right and left foot as you go side to side. So after I do that, I'm going to find the cross hair section from going forwards and backwards and side to side, and let that be my center point. And so after I've done that, I feel like I'm in a completely different orientation to gravity. And I feel like I am able to stand with way more ease than I was before I even did that. So that feels pretty cool for me. I hope that you were able to find something similar. So this is the spot. You want to remember that spot on the soles of your feet where you found that crosshair section. And this is going to be your point of balance. So as we go from the sit to stand and stand to sit, if you start to feel like you're wobbling or you are leaning side to side, come back to that point. Okay? So from here, let's do some hip hikes. So you're still going to stand in the same position, but we're going to start to come up onto the ball of the right foot and hike this right hip up towards the armpit. And then slowly let it come back down, lower the heel back to flat foot. Hike up the right hip, slowly let it down. 2 more. Hike it up, feeling that contraction in the right low back. And as you lower it, you feel that release of the low back. Hike it up towards the armpit, back down. Let's do the left side. If it's difficult to find that movement and find that contraction, you can either place your hand on that crest of your hip, or you can let the hand rest on the back so that you feel that contraction along the back side of the body, and then bring it down. Couple more. Good. And then maybe you get your sassy hips going and you go right to left. Good. Come into neutral. Feel how long your side body is, nice and open. And we're gonna, if you have a wall and you want to use the wall, you can back up your rump to the wall. Otherwise, just find a slight bend to the knees. And then we're gonna all bring our hands and find this crease of where our leg and our hips meet. So like right in here, if you were to bend your leg, you can find that hip crease. So if you're not against the wall, you're gonna be here, but it's the same thing if you're against the wall. It's just like a little mini wall sit. And from here, we're going to start to hinge forward. So we're starting to get our shoulders over our toes, keeping a neutral spine. So you don't want to round the spine or have a big arch to the spine. See if you can keep it as neutral as possible. And then come back up. Let the hip flexors fully relax. And then we're going to come back into it. Slight bend to the knees. Hinge at the hips. And then back up. 2 more times. Hinge. Stand up. And relax. Good. Take it a couple more. If you're against the wall and you want to try it without the wall, you can do that. One more. Good. Okay. From here, we're going to do what I'm going to call root to rise. And so I want you to think of like a basketball. When you bounce a basketball on the floor, you push it down, and then it automatically comes back up, that rebound effect. And so we want to find that same effect in our yoga practice, as well as like everyday life. When we're like walking, you want to have that bounce to your step. And so the more that we press our feet into the ground, the more energy that's going to come up, and the easier that it's going to be to stand up. So we root our feet like tree roots into the ground to find that energy to lift us up. So we root our feet to rise up. So I hope that makes sense. That you can feel that energy of you pressing your feet down into the ground. So try to press your feet down into the ground as much as you can. And you feel that energy rise up, and maybe you feel like you're getting a little bit taller. And so let's just take a couple like little squats here. You squat down, press your feet into the ground, rise up. Good. Little squat. As you want to stand up, press your feet to root down, and rise your head up towards the ceiling. Little chair. Press down to go up. Last one. Root to rise. So right there, I get the sensation of rebounding, as well as the hip hinge. So let's put it together. Let's grab your chair. And as you do this, you're going to start to come into your chair. If you want to sit all the way down, take a seat and relax. From here, you should have your ankles under your knees. And let's just pause here for a second and take a couple hip hinges here. So if you are notorious for like using everything around you to stand up, maybe for this practice, you just bring your hands together at the center of your heart and just practice hinging forward here. Same thing as when you're against the wall or floating off the wall. You feel this hinge at the hips with your neutral spine, and you start to get the shoulders over the knees. over the ankles here. 2 more. Good. Come up and relax. So just like we acted like we had never done the arch and flatten before, I want you to act like you have never stood up from a chair before. And think about all of the components that go into standing up, right? We didn't just learn how to stand up overnight. It took a long time as a child to learn how to stand up, how to hold our muscles in a capacity to do so. So think about everything that's going on in your body as you're about to stand up, okay? So we have our feet rooted. Can you find that point along the soles of the feet where you felt like that was your balance point? Okay. Can you start to hinge forward at the hips? Now, can you root to rise? So as you press your feet into the ground, you start to rise up nice and slow, finding that neutral pelvis as you stand. Good. Now we're going to reverse engineer it back down. So you have a slight bend to the knees, finding that center point. Start to hinge forward. As you hinge forward, start to sit back nice and slow to the chair. Dehinge the hips and you're here. If you need to hold on to something that is right by you so that you're not like leaning off to the side, hopefully. Or if you still need something to get up but you don't have anything by you, you can always place your hands on your thighs and use that as a chance to get up. Root to rise. Relax. And I just want you to try this a couple times. Nice and slow. Good. And notice how much effort it takes to do it properly. But as we practice this and get more efficient in it, you're going to start to maybe realize less stress on the joints, such as the knees, such as the hips, the feet, as well as the spine. So doing this sit to stand a couple times. I noticed that I am a plopper, like I just like to relax and sit. So it takes a lot of quad work for me to actually sit down nice and controlled. And so you might find those little quirks about your patterns as well as you do this. Good. Let's do 2 more. And then you can have a seat in your chair. If anyone has any questions about the sit to stand, please let me know now, or you can send me a message after class as well. I feel like this is one of the most easy to comprehend or to put into motion after class because you do it all the time. So even if tomorrow or throughout the week you start to break it apart a little bit more and that brings up questions, then just let me know as well. But from here in the seated position, let's come into a couple of seated cat-cows. I'll turn a little bit so you can see me. But I want you to scoot to the edge of your chair And we're going to find the arch and flatten of our pelvis into the spine, moving all the way up to the neck and getting the shoulders involved. So let's come into our cow first. You're going to start to tuck the tailbone, round through the spine, let the shoulders fall in, and drop the chin towards the chest. Unravel the hips, the spine, shoulders, head come up to neutral. And let's roll the pelvis forward. Come into that arch of the back, bring the shoulders back towards the spine, and maybe the head looks up. Neutral spine, pelvis, shoulders. And then just take your cat-cows a couple times, either slow or a medium pace, big or small, whatever's feeling good. One more each way. Good. And then from here, we're just going to take a seated forward fold. And so if it's a little difficult to fold forward in your chair, you can grab like a blanket or a pillow and let your body fall over your legs. Let the head rest, and you can just let yourself hang here. Taking some deep inhales and exhales. Coming back to that intention. It's been forgotten. And then I want you to pick one final pose to do. I'll give you options as a pose, or if you feel like you need to stretch something else, then that's totally up to you. So, some options are you can do legs up the wall. You could do legs up on your chair, where you just have the calves resting on the base of your chair. Or you could do reclined butterfly, where you're lying on your back and you have the soles of the feet together, knees out wide. Or you could come into a wide straddle pose and hang out here. Okay, so those are just 4 options that you could do. But I feel like this is an important part of the class, to give you that one free pose. And just listen to your body. What's it asking for? And if it's asking for Shavasana, then maybe that's what you go into right away. Resting in your final pose for just a couple more moments. When you feel like you're complete with your final pose, let's come into our resting meditation. meditation, the integration of our practice. So you can start to set yourself up for that final rest, either on your back, or maybe sitting in a chair if that's more comfortable. Getting any props like pillows or blankets, or maybe an eye pillow, or something over your eyes. The lights off. Maybe with like pillows or a thick blanket behind the knees. This was another really great opportunity for you to ask me questions after practice for the best way to set up your Shavasana. I'd be happy to help. From here, you can start to close the eyes and start to tune into the breath. Do you feel more connected to yourself than you did an hour ago? Tonight, the meditation is going to be a loving kindness meditation. So you can follow along with me if you would like, or you can focus on your breath. I'll leave you with some silence at the end before I take you out of it. Allow yourself to remember and open up to your basic goodness. And as you experience this love, notice how you feel in your body. Maybe you feel some warmth or heat to the face. This is loving kindness, a natural feeling that is accessible to all of us, always. Resting with this feeling of open, unconditional love. Beginning now to wish yourself well by extending words of loving kindness to yourself. Offering these words in your mind to yourself. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I feel connected and calm. May I accept myself just as I am. May I be happy. Now you can open the circle of loving kindness by bringing to mind someone who is dear to you. Reflect on this person's basic goodness, sensing what it is in particular that you love about them. offering these words to them. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you feel connected and calm. May you accept yourself just as you are. May you be happy. Now bring to mind a neutral person. This is someone you might see regularly, but you don't know well. Might be a neighbor or a grocery store clerk. Offering these words. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you feel connected and calm. May you accept yourself just as you are. May you be happy. And now, if it's possible for you, bring to mind someone with whom you had a difficult relationship with. Reminding yourself to see this person as a whole being, deserving of love and kindness. Offering these words, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you feel connected and calm. May you accept yourself just as you are. May you be happy. Now allow your awareness to open out in all directions. Yourself, a dear one, a neutral person, a difficult person, and all beings living everywhere. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all beings be happy. And finally, bringing all this kindness to yourself, allowing yourself to bask in the energy of loving kindness that has been generated here. to take some deeper breaths, making your inhale and your exhale a little bit deeper with intention. And start to plan out how you're going to roll from your back to your side and eventually up to seated. Taking your time, either coming to a seated position on the floor or in a chair. Keeping your eyes closed as you come up to a seated position. Rubbing the palms of the hands together. Feel that heat. Placing the hands over the ears, giving yourself a little massage. Place your hands over the eyes. Rub the eyebrows around the eyes. And slowly start to blink open the eyes if you wish. Place your hands over the heart. Gently rubbing over the chest of the heart. Bring the hands together at the heart center. Thank you all so much for practicing with me tonight. I wish you love, light, and happiness. Namaste. Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye, Oliver. Were you